Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the 10 biggest breakout college football players of the 2024 season. I'm going to give my list counting down from 10 to 1. All of these players I do think could develop into first round picks and possibly All-Americans, beginning with number 10, and it is the only tight end on the list, Colston Loveland, who was recently named the best returning tight end by PFF out of Michigan. You can see he did play in both his freshman and sophomore seasons, totaling over 600 yards as a sophomore. Very impressive out of that Michigan offense. I would expect possibly 800, maybe 1,000 yards for Loveland. He should be first team All Big Ten, possibly an All-American. Really impressive physical and athletic hybrid tight end, the exact type of tight end you want in the modern game. Colston Loveland, I'm expecting big things his junior year. Michigan, they are going to need a quarterback. We'll see what they do in the spring transfer portal window, but that's going to be very key to his potential success in 2024. Moving on to the number 9 breakout player, it is A.J. Harris. Now, A.J. Harris is a former 5-star cornerback who originally committed and went to Georgia, but after just a season of sparingly playing, he did transfer to Penn State, and I am expecting big things from him at Penn State. Penn State is very good at developing secondary players, and they really haven't had a talent, at least in terms of recruiting pedigree, like A.J. Harris. So A.J. Harris, it's very hard to break the defensive rotation at Georgia, especially when you're a true freshman. He plays barely there, he transfers, and he is a very talented former 5-star athletic, physical cornerback who should do very well with Penn State. He should have a breakout 2024 season. Moving on to number 8, it is Sonny Styles, the potentially former safety, and I am saying former because I would expect a position change from Styles with the addition of Caleb Downs and the returning talent that Ohio State has. Look for Sonny Styles to move to a hybrid outside linebacker after putting on a little bit of weight. Styles did reclassify, so he's like a year younger than he should be. But his sophomore season at the safety position, 4.5 tackles for loss as a safety, that's rather elite. And with him possibly moving to outside linebacker, I would expect double-digit tackles for loss along with 3 or 4 sacks at least. Sonny Styles, I'm expecting to be a breakout player on this Ohio State defense. His pedigree is amazing, former 5-star, reclassified, and I think he goes in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. Moving on to the number 7 breakout player, it is Jackson Arnold, the former 5-star quarterback who did play sparingly, but he did get a few starts towards the end of his true freshman season. Last year, he was obviously behind Dylan Gabriel. He did show growth in those starts. Sure, he struggled a little bit, but any true freshman quarterback is going to go through some growing pains, and with Oklahoma moving to the SEC, Jackson Arnold's going to have a lot of opportunity to break out within this offense. I'm expecting big things. I was very impressed with the limited amount of action I saw from him as a true freshman. He has the mobility, the arm strength, and the touch, but I would say he's more of a pocket passer. We'll see what he does in 2024. Moving on to number 6, it is Xavier Nwakpa, the safety out of Iowa. Now, this is someone who was really highly regarded amongst recruiting circles. He committed to Iowa, and he is going into his 3rd season. I'm expecting him to be a 3-and-done, possibly be an All-American, and very likely be a first-round pick in 2025. This kid has it all. He's a hybrid, rangy, modern-day safety. He was kind of overshadowed by Cooper DeJean. But now with him gone, Nwakpa should be able to step up and really take the spotlight for an Iowa defense who loses a lot. Look for him to carry this defensive unit at the safety position. On to the number 5 breakout player. It is Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, Tate played sparingly as a true freshman. Normally, Ohio State doesn't play their true freshmen a ton, but he flashed significantly. I would expect him possibly to be the number 1 receiver. I know everyone wants to talk about Emeka Egbuka coming back, and Egbuka certainly is an elite player, but I think that Carnell Tate is on a different level in terms of overall talent. And in this Ohio State offense with Brian Hartline, Chip Kelly, and Ryan Day, they're going to be humming no matter who is at quarterback. Look for Carnell Tate to be very impressive and possibly a breakout player in 2024. Moving on to the number 4 spot in my breakout players, it is Keon Sabb, who actually kind of broke out towards the end of last year for Michigan. He had kind of a weird career at Michigan where he didn't play much at all as a freshman. Then he played a lot later on in Michigan's championship run. This was a kid that originally, throughout the recruiting process, was a 5-star, but he got moved down after some late updates. He certainly has significant talent, and I would expect with him transferring to Alabama to possibly develop into a first-round pick. Alabama, they know what they're doing when it comes to transfers. There's been speculation he goes into the portal and very quickly, commits to Alabama, possibly some tampering going on. Every team does it, we understand it, but that goes to show you that Alabama really wanted this guy to replace Caleb Downs. He's not as good as Caleb Downs, but this still is a very elite player who seemingly was coming into his own down the stretch and played very well in the playoff games for Michigan during their national championship run. Moving on to my number 3 breakout player, it is another Alabama transfer, Damani Jackson, and this is kind of a transfer portal kid that went under the radar. He is not the highest ranked portal kid, but when you look at his recruiting resume, top 10 overall player, number 1 cornerback in his class, went to USC and was part of that disastrous Alex Grinch scheme. He's an extremely impressive athlete. There's a reason he was ranked where he was. And I think in terms of the national media, Jackson is really sliding under the radar. He should have a huge 2024. The number 2 breakout player for me, it is a quarterback, Avery Johnson, who will be the new starting QB for Kansas State, with Will Howard now transferring to Ohio State, Kansas State. Bringing in Johnson, who was a pretty impressive recruit. Normally you think Kansas State, lower end 4 stars, 3 stars. Now, this guy was a pretty impressive, solid 4-star recruit who did flash significantly as a dual threat QB. As a freshman, he's a dual threat QB, and I'm expecting him to perform extremely well in the Big 12. You look at the Big 12 conference, there are no big dogs. You could say Utah, they've always got a good defense, I get it, but this is a situation where he really could feast on some mediocre defenses in the Big 12 conference and maybe lead Kansas State to a playoff berth his first year starting if they win that conference. And then the number 1 breakout player of 2024, it has to be Zachariah Branch, who actually broke out as a true freshman in week 0 against San Jose State, but really didn't do much else last year. Again, it was only his true freshman season. This is a shifty receiver, former 5-star, extremely elite athlete who can also return kicks and punts. Very explosive in that Lincoln Riley offense with Miller Moss at QB. This kid's going to be very impressive, I would say. 1,500 all-purpose yards, probably 1,200 receiving yards, and double-digit touchdowns in 2024. He is an absolute stud. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.